I'm here with Shoshanna, Utchenik, and Diane Christiansen as they install Notes to the Non-Self in Heron Galleries. So how's the installation going so far?
Great. We've had amazing help. This is an amazing space.
Really quite involved so far. I've got a lot of clouds and trees, and everything is made of paper mache, is that correct? These clouds and such?
Bamboo, paper mache, tape.
Tape
fishing wire. There's a lot of fishing wire happening.
All the trees are plywood and muon.
So what was it like constructing all this? There's so much in this exhibition, and then in turn installing it. What has the process been like? And this is the second time the show's been exhibited.
Yeah, the first was at the Hyde Park Art Center in Chicago. Well, it's been kind of slapdash in that we put everything in one truck, and we had a lot of helpers, but a little bit of chaos going on because there are a lot of elements.
Yeah, our process was begun as a correspondence of these little notes, these images that are collaged into the trees and the clouds too, overseas. So we started really small like that and just kept expanding and expanding. And I was in Slovenia and in Ljubljana, and Diane was here in Chicago. And so when we would be in the same place at the same time, we would get as much of the physical manifestation of this project started as possible, but a lot of it fell to Diane working with interns from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago in her studio at home, and really a lot of it got built in the backyard. Yeah, there's like squirrel poop on some of the clouds.
Yeah. And things were stored hither and yon in Chicago, so we had to pick up
friend's
the clubhouse.
basement, and in her loft, and in her house, actually in the hallway, she had a bunch of clouds hanging for months and months. So, so when she says slapdash, I mean that really alludes to a whole world of
people coming together to gather all these elements and put them in a truck.
And not necessarily quick, but just rough, like everything really broad view, I think, along the whole process. Like the notes are very precise in terms of like personal moments captured through scrabble and rants and doodles and beautiful paintings. Like there's a range of the quality of notes as well, but the actual construction was very rough.
Yeah. And really reliant on faith, on just believing that this would come together with one person helping us with this thing and one person helping us with another,
and faith also that we should make this, because it's just a crazy scale considering that when we first began the process we didn't have any support or finances.
How did the idea for this show come about?
Well, Shosh had been introduced to me as someone to help me make a giant cartoon character out of paper mache.
Actually, of this character.
Oh, this character, yeah, Cocoon Girl. So I made this cartoon animation, and she appears in paintings, and I wanted to make a giant incarnation of her, and someone suggested this young woman out of Northwestern who was working for Redmond Puppet Company, Puppet Theater, and so we met on that show, which was in 2006, and then she moved to Ljubljana, to Slovenia, and contacted me via the internet, and we really became friends long distance. I mean,
like on Skype.
On Skype,
Skype, and so we decided to do some sort of art project together, and we didn't know what it would be. So we thought, let's start very organically. We've come together in this, long distance correspondence, so let's take it back old school and use the mail. And we started mailing each other little scraps, debris, really, from.
Literally, like things found in the alley that we did drawings on.
And some of my favorite early notes were like cutaway scraps of other things Diane was working on from her studio. So there would just be some like really wonderful painting effect on some really good quality paper, but it would be like a little chunk this big, and there would be no indication of what it's from.
Right.
And so then I would make that into something else. And so in the beginning we just made a rule, like, okay, every scrap is going to be touched by each of us once, period. Like there was no more vision than that.
Yeah.
And then once we had started accumulating them and saw a lot of recurring imagery, like skull imagery and this sort of forest imagery.
Well, and we were also talking about like what we were reading. We were both reading Pema Chodron, who's an American Buddhist nun. And so, there was a lot of writing and drawing going on, and so we were influenced by these teachings and by each other's, sort of aesthetic, like drawings and teachings, and so these themes started emerging.
Right, and there was also like a lot of the nature of all the themes was that they would have these macro, micro elements to the same component. So there'd be something about like philosophy or ethics or human relationships in general or physiology, like biological processes.
Something that's huge and then very specific.
And then it would be, my mom, my daughter, my husband, or my body. Yeah. My poop.
Yeah, exactly. Poop in general. And then our individual poops. I mean, literally, and some of our worldviews are very shockingly similar and hilariously so. And so, we started seeing the world and each other and ourselves in these notes, sort of colliding. And we hadn't really known each other before.
Right.
So it's really funny.
So we proposed, once we saw this accumulation and the potential for continuing that process of communicating, visually and through materials, then we were like, okay, let's propose putting this all together in a space. And I think we did have the landscape idea, but it wasn't so specific. It was at that point.
Yeah.
It was just like, let's get that all together into one space. I think we were still thinking fairly abstractly at that time.
Yeah, and then we started thinking, what if we had, a forest? What if we had sky? And what if the sky in some ways spoke to the idea of, big mind or little specific monkey mind, little activity of the mind or big spacious mind, which I think even if you don't know that concept is here, you might feel that specificity versus spaciousness, kind of, or with spaciousness. And
so I think in the beginning we had those ideas as sort of like areas, but we didn't know exactly physically how it would all work together.
I sent that blue blob to you, and you sent back a map of all the areas, and that's I think.
I made the blue blob. Like, what if we make that a maze through
going through the activity of the mind,
like the pain of ego, and then pit stop at the gift shop of distractions, and like. Great, thanks. And and so that's how we got the idea of
it's through that one drawing.
But that wasn't at all.
Which we made.
I don't think that wasn't at all woods.
We Xeroxed that. It's up here. No,
as nonsensical as this is, it's actually very narrative and it's linear compared to where we started.
Yeah.
And so at that point we started proposing to do something. Whimsical, abstract.
Yeah, but that is how it happened. That we were like, okay, and the areas are things you get hooked on, things that things your mind gets hooked on and obsesses on. One area in that drawing was wild monkeys, where your mind just kind of goes off, and those are present everywhere. If you look around, there's little tiny. We used laser cuts in the sky, and there's little monkeys all over. If you look carefully. Those are where the wild monkeys ended up.
So we sent out a bunch of proposals, and we ended up getting like the big one,
the biggest space.
Biggest space. And this was really in the throes of the beginning of the recession, and the real estate market bursting and everything. And so we got this huge show at the Hyde Park Art Center in Chicago, and we could not even find places to apply for grants. I mean, we did, but. We did apply for a couple, but it was really
too late.
A weird, bittersweet thing of like we got it. How are we going to make this happen?
Yeah, so that's where we went on faith, and we ended up selling prayer flags, which
that were part of our correspondence, and then became part of the show.
we made these prayer flags, prints, little sets of prayer flags, and we sold a gazillion of them, and basically paid for much of our show that way.
Well, it's really interesting hearing how all this came together, and I think despite the unusual circumstances and sort of difficult construction, you've done a very good job of navigating the landscape of the South. So thank you so much, Diane and Shoshanna.
Thank you.
Thank you.